Hi, it's me. Just like I said, I'm here. I'm live. I'm doing this. So today what I really wanted to talk to you about is why you're hearing so much hype about self-care. Not just from me, but sure, for me and but all over the place. Aren't you noticing? And I know that for some people to hear about self-care can be triggering. And when I say that, what I mean is that for some people, self-care still means selfish. It still means if you're putting yourself first, if you're taking care of yourself, then you are putting yourself last. For some people, it means another set of to-dos, which there's no time for. For some people, it just seems like it's a frou-frou thing, like it's unnecessary in actuality, right? So I want to just kind of bust some of those myths, and I want to talk about why self-care is really important. So real self-care is, and I also want to talk about what self-care is not. All right, so let's just start by saying in our culture, in our society, in the Western world, we tend to do there's a lot of stuff that people do that could that masquerades as self-care but really isn't. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Cosmetic things, beauty things, these things aren't self-care. If you want to get your nails done, if you want to get your toes done, if you want to go for a spa day, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And some parts of a spa day, some, and depending on where you're going and what exactly it's like, sometimes that can be self-care. Like going to a place, taking a day where you're actually just relaxing and taking care of yourself, that can be self-care. What's not self-care is going and getting your eyelash extensions done, right? Like that might make you feel beautiful, but the real beauty is inside and something that you want to be able to access and know without having a circumstance, right? Like circumstance being an external thing, like your eyelashes being long and luxurious, or your lips being plump, or your, whatever. I'm not saying that some of these things can't contribute to our self-care, but in and of themselves, these are not self-care. Like that's not what self-care is. So why are you hearing about it? We've all heard the term like fill your own cup. The fact that if you're not full, if your cup is not full, the cup you are pouring from, then you are just depleting yourself, right? And as women in this culture, or maybe all cultures, I don't know, as women, we tend to keep doing that. And at the expense, even sometimes we know we're depleting ourselves and we just keep going. And the danger in that is obviously that you're not going to be able to continue. You'll get some kind of a dis-ease at some point, right? You can't just keep going. You can't just keep giving if you are depleted. And it comes out in other kinds of ways where you can start to feel resentful. You can start to lose sense of yourself and what it is you came to this world, to this life to do. What are your gifts? What are the things that you desire? What are the things that make you feel alive and passionate? What are the ways in which you want to make a difference? Or what are just the things that bring you joy? And who are you, right? Like we lose sense of those things when we're constantly focused externally. Another reason why self-care is because we're learning a lot about how we as a society, as a global culture, I'm talking now, we're we're learning more about how the fast-paced electronic lives that we lead, what kind of an effect that's having on us. We're learning more about neuroscience. We're learning more about the fact that we're all like, as we evolve, right? We can look back to our grandmothers or our great-grandmothers, and in some ways we can say they were doing things better than us. And then in some ways they would look at us and say, no, you've got it, you know? So it's both, right? We've got some things now we're learning that might be better in some ways, but they had some things right that we don't. So I want to marry those things and bring, like, why can't we keep what is the best of a philosophy or an age of time or right, a part of our culture as we move forward. So we're evolving, not just technologically, but really evolving, holistically evolving, involving every single part of ourselves and our culture and our planet, or everything, right? So if we were doing that, we would be recognizing that our fast-paced lives and our upbringing a lot of times has left us in a place as adults where, as we start to get more and more conscious and aware, we realize that we have forgotten parts of ourselves, right? We have been told that certain parts were bad or made certain parts bad because we didn't want to be known for that or seen as that or whatever it is. For whatever reason, we've got a lot of stuff going on that's working against us. So much so that people are having like less energy and less ability to focus and like brain fog all of the time and just overwhelmed and overscheduled. And we've really lost touch with our deeper why inside of why we do anything, of why we're living, of why we're doing the things we do in our lives, and we're running on autopilot, which is also, a lot of us are very hyped up every day on adrenaline and cortisol. And this, as we know, like depletes our system so badly that all of the normal activities that our organs need to be doing on a daily basis, they're not getting to do. If you are in fight or flight, right? If you are in that stress mode where your primitive brain has taken over and you're just go, go, go. If you're there, and chances are, if you live in this age, you're there quite often. You're definitely there a lot more than you ever feel actually threatened, right? A life threat. That's not true for everyone. I recognize that some people do have life threats daily, but the majority of us, and the majority of us watching this, don't have daily situations where our lives feel threatened. Instead, it's just the mind, right? It's the mental, neurological pathway, and it's completely involuntary. So don't fault yourself for that if that's you. So those are a lot of reasons why we need self-care, right? We haven't, even back in the day when our great-grandmothers were living, people weren't taking care of themselves the way that they should have been. Women traditionally do give more. We just, as mothers, as nurturers, whether you have children or not, I see women all the time in my practice, even who are just working, single women who still take on more than they need to, and they're depleting themselves in the process instead of being able to be sustainable. So let's talk about that, sustainability. We talk about sustainability all the time when it comes to the planet, when it comes to building materials, when it comes to these kinds of earth-friendly things. But what about humans? What about human-friendly things? What about the fact that we're all walking around out there living lives that are not truly sustainable? And what I mean by that is you can't keep this same level of production all the time. You can't. And you shouldn't try. You shouldn't hold yourself to that expectation. Because if you are, then you're going to set yourself up for failure. You're going to feel bad about yourself. You're going to lose trust in yourself. You're going to lose confidence in yourself. Then you're going to lose integrity. So we need to be taking care of ourselves. The Indians, as in so originally, I guess we all came from Africa, Mother Africa, and then eventually a lot of people came out of Africa through India, and there in India, a lot of what influences us today is coming from India. So the Indians had it right when they came up with Ayurveda. And Ayurveda literally means the science of life, or the knowledge of life. And it is a living medicine, practice of medicine. And in Ayurveda, we learn how important it is to just line up with the natural rhythms of the day, of the week, of the month, of the year, of our lives, even like the different phases we go through in our lives. And we learn that, and then we also just learn how to take care of ourselves as humans, because we don't get that growing up. We don't get that in school. Unless you had some really enlightened, conscious parents, chances are you did not get that at home. And it's not anybody's fault. But this knowledge is available to all of us if we tap into it and if we seek it out, right? So if you're watching this, hopefully you're seeking it out, because it's amazing stuff. So self-care, why? That's why. All right? We need to learn how to take care of ourselves so that we can live the lives we want to live, so that we can cherish this amazing life that we have, instead of it being a grueling experience. Of course, there's going to be discomfort. There's always discomfort. There's discomfort in growth and evolution. And there's discomfort in disaster, right? But sometimes things are even in the growth process, there is discomfort. So we have to get used to being uncomfortable, and that's okay. But not uncomfortable in a way that's leading us down a negative path that's taking us into dis-ease. Instead, we want to be uncomfortable because we're getting into our edges and not knowing what's coming next, and a little bit afraid of that, and that's okay. So that's also a sympathetic, parasympathetic thing that we've all, in a big way, back in the old days, let's say we're running for our lives, right? We learn to get into that mode, to get into sympathetic mode where it's fight or flight, or play dead, freeze, right? In order to survive. We don't need that now so much, right? We need it when we need it, but when we don't need it, which is 95% of the time or more, then we don't need it. And we need to be able to discern what is a healthy risk and what is not a healthy risk. So moving into our own self-growth, self-care, self-love, evolution of ourselves and the planet, that's worth the risk. And there's actually no risk involved. The only risk is the one perceived by our minds, and it's just the fact that it's the unknown, right? On the healing path, we open ourselves up to nobody knows what. You don't know what ahead of time. It's always the unknown. And it's always something incredible, right? If you're healing, it's incredible because you're going to come out transformed, right? It's a path. So that is why self-care. If you have any questions, please, if I wasn't clear and you still think, no, I don't get it, why self-care, then please let me know. I want to have this conversation with you. So that is why self-care. So the other thing is, what is self-care really? If it's not going to get your pedicure, then what is it, right? So it's also not a laundry list of things that you have to do every day. It really breaks down to this. Self-care is about parenting yourself. It's about being the very best parent than you can be. It's about being a better parent than you had, even if you had an amazing parent or parents. Not because they didn't do a good enough job, but because no one could possibly parent you as good as you can. And in the beginning, there's definitely a learning curve because we weren't taught this stuff. So in the beginning, you bump up against the fact that maybe you don't even really like yourself. That's the sad truth of it. Maybe you are in a place where you're hurting and you've never really looked at that. We all have so many layers of stuff. And so it could be that you really don't have very nice things to say about yourself. And it's quite familiar. It's quite more familiar than not that your inner dialogue is a negative one. And that happens. That was me. And what we want to be able to do is start to parent ourselves. Take the challenge. You'll get better at it, I promise. Just like if you've ever had kids or a pet even, you don't know what you're doing in the beginning. You have some ideas, maybe you read some books, but this is real life. So think of it the same way with yourself, and you really have to start over. And so self-care, parenting yourself in the very best way possible, thereby being able to embrace yourself, accept yourself exactly who you are and where you are on your growth path, right? You might be in an uncomfortable place and not really happy with that, but that's not who you are. You might not like your eyelashes the way they are, but that's not who you are, right? So self-care, when we are engaged in a relationship with ourselves and we are practicing good self-care, we are wanting more and more to uncover and be very, we're wanting more and more to live in the truth that yourself is not dependent. Your worth is not dependent upon any external factor whatsoever. It's not dependent upon what someone thinks. It's not dependent upon what your clothes are. It's not dependent on religion, race, gender. It's not dependent upon financial numbers, like financial issues. It's not dependent upon your job, your relationship, your any circumstance whatsoever, or even what you have been doing, what you have done with your life. Your essential self is love. Your essential self is as close to God as anything can be. And it's only in the perception of looking at ourselves as separate, as wrong, looking at other people as separate and as wrong, that we really get off track with that, because there's really, we're not all separate, even though we have these different forms that we take on, right? Our bodies. We're not all separate. We're all one. And that's as true can get. And we want to take care of ourselves. So we start to want to live in the place where we recognize that our worth has nothing to do with our external circumstances, and where we're willing to do little things, we're willing to make little shifts in order to be that better parent, right? Because the payoff is huge. The payoff is a lot more energy, because you are wasting most of us are wasting a lot of energy on holding back parts of ourselves, on holding judgments on ourselves and other people, on hiding parts of ourselves that we don't believe will be accepted by other people. And when we can let go of all of that, there's a tremendous amount of lightness and energy, like literally energy that you have that you can use in your day. So we want to start to do that and start this like more enlightened conversation with ourselves about that and checking in. So one of the ways that you would do this is to check in with yourself. I prefer to check in first thing in the morning, as a rule, as a practice for myself, and then throughout the day too. But checking in to find out what you need, right? Maybe you need some quiet time. Maybe you need some yoga. Maybe you need to get a glass of water. It could be that simple. Maybe you need to do a little meditating on something that happened yesterday. Maybe you need to write a letter to someone where you overstepped a boundary and you feel bad about it and you're carrying that with you. Self-care can be anything. Self-care can obviously be, doing a guided relaxation, getting ourselves living more into the parasympathetic, the rest and digest, so our organs, so we can stop the adrenaline cortisol output and get back into rest digest, where we're actually able to detox naturally on a daily basis. We're able to lose weight. We're able to let things go, right? Instead of hang on to them mentally and physically in our bodies and in our space. And so to me, that's what self-care is. Self-care is parenting and being the best parent you can to yourself. And if you are a parent, whether it's to kids or to furry ones, or whatever relationships you're in, if you begin this dialogue, this relationship with yourself to self-love, right, is what we're really getting down to, it will change the rest of your life. And like I said, it's not a big to-do list. You may find that down the road, after you've been on this path for quite some time, that your self-care changes, and that you end up having several things that you do every day that contribute to your self-care. But it doesn't have to be that you take that much time out of your day, and it certainly doesn't need to start that way. So one of the sweetest practices that my dear friend Amy Williams has taught me from Parenting with Prana. You can check out her, that's her business page, Parenting with Prana. Her name is Amy Williams, and I highly recommend everything that she offers. But one of the practices that she shared with me, and it seems so obvious, right, is placing my hand on my heart and saying, I love you. And there are times when I do that when it feels very inauthentic, where I feel like, no, I don't, right? There's that little like rebel voice inside that's mad at myself, right, for whatever. But when I'm able to really drop into that and breathe and feel I love you to myself, what a huge difference it makes. I'm able to be a better parent. I'm able to show up better in my relationships with other people because I'm doing this for myself. And I promise you, I'm not taking more time away from my kids when I'm practicing my self-care. I'm getting up early before they do so that I can take care of myself and do some things before they get up. And the time that we are together is so different, because when I don't take care of myself, I'll be the first to tell you, I get very resentful. I get resentful that I'm being pulled in different directions when I'm not able to take care of myself, or when I don't choose to put myself first and do whatever it is I need to do in that particular day. And then when I'm resentful, I don't show up as the parent that I want to be for them or myself. So then I have to go back to that sweet practice and just placing my hand on my heart. I love you. I'm going to invite you to do that right now. If you're watching this live or later on, standing, sitting, lying down, doesn't matter. Just don't close your eyes if you're driving. Place a hand on your heart. Take a breath that goes deep into your body where you acknowledge your whole body. Relax your jaw. Soften your face. Soften your resistance. And then acknowledge your heart center, your heart chakra, this whole area. It's like think of a giant sphere. I mean, not giant, but I think maybe the size of a basketball or even bigger. I mean, your heart's electromagnetic field is vast, but just imagine in your body, like right around your heart, a big space, and breathe into that space. And then place your hand on your heart and say those words to yourself, those 3 words. I love you. And it's okay if it doesn't feel super authentic in this moment. You can say it again. You can also say, I want to love you. You can also say, I love you even though, and then you fill in the blank. So I'm going to leave it there for you guys. If this is at all intriguing for you, I challenge you to make a choice to do something a little different and to join me this summer for Awakening Your Inner Healer. And so this, we've already started, but you can join at any time. I will post the link above so that you have it to sign up. I have a private Facebook group called Health Revolution Inner Wisdom Circle, and it's where a few of us have gathered in order to be able to have conversations about things like this, to be able to be vulnerable. It's a private group, so nothing is shared in there. Nothing. I don't share anything with anyone, and there is no ability to share anything in the group. So even though when you log on to your Facebook, you will see in your news feed, you might see something from the group. It's only because it's your news feed and you're in the group, but no one else can see it. And every week on Thursday at 12, I am live in there. And I'm going to be just continuing to deliver different ways of self-care, different techniques and tools coming from Ayurveda, coming from yoga, coming from divine feminine wisdom, earth medicine, neuroscience, lots of different really cool habit science, really cool things that have come together for me in a real way in my life. And I want to share them with you. They are all free. This whole challenge is free. 13 weeks of weekly wisdom circles with me. So I will put in the link to sign up, and I hope you join us. And I'll be doing more of these to remind you of why self-care is so important. Another reason self-care is important, and I'll talk about that in another one probably, because this is a whole other topic, but why so many of us know what we need to do and we don't do it. What's that about, right? And then because we know what to do, we resist getting help. I see that all the time. I've seen it in myself, and I don't like it. And I don't think I'm quite as much like that anymore. I really do. I'm a perpetual learner, and I love that. And I've become really good at learning from other people and not having the resistance to it anymore. But so many people I see have a little bit of a wall up because, they're already in the self-care industry, or the wellness industry rather, and they're feeling like they already know all the things to do. And so why would they need help? But I needed help, and I knew all the things to do. We all need help, right? We're one and we need help. We need to be there for one another, and that's what this group is for. So I hope you join the challenge. It has been a pleasure, as always, to be with you. I am Jessica Graham Robinson of SacredSpaceHealingArts.com signing off. Talk to you Thursday if you're in the group.